Before this story begins, I want to ask you for something simple, but powerful. If you believe real stories can change lives, if you believe that speaking truth helps someone feel less alone, then take 1 second, subscribe to this channel, and turn on notifications. Because the story you're about to hear isn't just about what happened to me. It's about recognizing danger, trusting your instincts, and finding the strength to protect yourself when the world expects you to stay silent. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. My childhood didn't feel loud or chaotic. It felt steady, predictable, safe. My father was often away, serving in the military, which meant that most of the time, it was just my mother and me. And somehow, she managed to turn that absence into something warm instead of empty. She built our home with intention. Not with money or luxury, but with consistency. Every day followed a rhythm. Meals at the same time. Conversations that mattered. Silence that never felt threatening. Our house became a sanctuary. A place where nothing unexpected ever happened. And in that world, I learned something very early. Home was where you let your guard down. Every so often, that quiet world would be interrupted. But in a good way. My uncle, my mother's brother, would visit. And when he did, the air changed. He was the kind of person who brought energy with him. Laughter followed him into rooms. He remembered birthdays. He brought small gifts. He told silly jokes. He was the fun relative. The one adults trusted. The one kids felt safe around. To me, he wasn't just family. He was familiar comfort. And when someone earns that level of trust early in your life, you don't question it later. Why would you? That trust became part of the foundation I stood on. Which is why what happened years later felt like the ground collapsing beneath me. By the time I turned 20, my life looked very different. I was a university student, living independently, surrounded by new ideas, new people, and new conversations. For the first time, I wasn't just surviving, I was discovering who I was. My friends and I talked late into the night about things we'd never said out loud before. What autonomy really means. How self-worth is built, not given. Why listening to your instincts isn't selfish, it's survival. Those conversations changed me. Slowly, quietly, deeply. Something inside me began to shift. I started journaling. Not because someone told me to, but because I needed clarity. I explored interests without asking permission. I learned to sit with my own thoughts. And most importantly, I started practicing small boundaries. Nothing dramatic. Saying no when I felt tired. Choosing silence over explaining myself. Trusting discomfort instead of dismissing it. At the time, I didn't realize what I was building. I thought I was just growing up. But in reality, I was constructing an inner fortress. One I would need sooner than I ever imagined. The day everything changed didn't arrive with warning signs. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't stormy. It wasn't memorable until it was. I came back to my apartment after a long day of lectures. Exhausted. Mentally drained. Emotionally raw. All I wanted was rest. And then I saw him. My uncle was visiting. At first, I felt comforted. We talked casually about my studies, about life. His presence felt familiar, like a bridge back to the home I once knew. Eventually, my fatigue caught up with me. I excused myself politely and went to my room. At that moment, I felt centered, grounded, strong in a quiet way. I had no idea how quickly that peace would be tested. There was a soft knock on my bedroom door. Not loud, not urgent, just present. When I opened it, my uncle was standing there. But something was wrong. The warmth I knew was gone. The familiarity had vanished. His eyes were different. And in that instant, my body reacted before my mind could catch up. The air felt heavy. He stepped closer, too close. The space between us, once safe, now felt invaded. Just checking on you, he said. But his voice didn't match his words. There was an undertone. A tension. A focus that didn't belong there. Then he said it. A comment. Framed as a suggestion. Disguised as fun. But there was nothing playful about it. It crossed every line. And time slowed in that frozen second. Everything I'd been learning rushed forward. Every journal entry. Every conversation. Every small boundary I had practiced. This was the moment they had been preparing me for. Not in detail, but in principle. I felt adrenaline surge, not chaotic, but sharp, clear. I took a step back, not just physically, but emotionally. And then I spoke. No. One word. Come. Absolute. Unapologetic. This is not okay, I said. You need to leave my room. Now. His face changed. Surprise. Then irritation. As if my refusal was an inconvenience. He tried again. A casual comment. A minimizing tone. But my foundation held. I said it again. No, my voice didn't shake. I am not comfortable with this. Your behavior is unacceptable. Please leave. Silence followed. Heavy. Final. For the first time, he didn't see me as a child from his memories. He saw me as a person with boundaries. And that changed everything. When the door closed behind him, the sound felt louder than it should have. Not because of the noise, but because of what it meant. The room fell into a silence so complete it felt unreal. No footsteps. No voices. Just me, and the aftermath. My body began to shake. Not dramatically. Not all at once. Small tremors. Like my nervous system was finally releasing what it had been holding together for those few critical minutes. I sat down on the edge of my bed, staring at the door, replaying everything in my mind. Had that really just happened? The pain didn't come immediately. First came disbelief. This was someone I had trusted since childhood. Someone my family laughed with. Someone I never imagined I would need protection from. And that realization hurt more than fear ever could. Because fear passes. But betrayal rewrites memories. Every moment I had once thought was innocent suddenly felt contaminated by doubt. I questioned things I had never questioned before. And that's one of the most devastating parts of betrayal. It doesn't just harm you in the present. It reaches backward and changes the past. As the adrenaline faded, another emotion tried to take its place. Guilt. The quiet, poisonous kind. A voice whispered. Did I overreact? Did I misunderstand? Am I making this bigger than it was? That voice didn't sound like mine. It sounded like society. It sounded like conditioning. It sounded like generations of silence disguised as keeping the peace. But another voice, calmer, stronger, answered back. You did the right thing. That night, sleep didn't come easily. Every time I closed my eyes, my body replayed the moment. Not the words, but the feeling. The sudden loss of safety. The shock of realization. The instinctive need to protect myself. I realized something unsettling. Standing up for yourself doesn't always feel empowering right away. Sometimes it feels lonely. Sometimes it feels heavy. Sometimes it feels like grief. In the days that followed, I made a decision. I chose distance. Not as punishment. Not out of anger. But out of self-respect. I limited contact. I avoided situations where I would have to pretend nothing happened. I stopped prioritizing other people's comfort over my own well-being. And that decision wasn't easy. Because distance from family isn't just physical, it's emotional. What people don't talk about enough is the pressure that follows moments like these. The unspoken expectations. Don't cause drama. Don't make it awkward. Don't ruin family harmony. But I learned something critical during this time. Harmony that requires your silence is not harmony. It's control. And I refused to participate in that. Eventually, I realized I couldn't process this alone. So I reached out to a university counselor. That step mattered more than I can fully explain. Because for the first time, someone said this to me without hesitation. What you felt was valid. Your response was appropriate. You protected yourself. Hearing those words out loud changed everything. In counseling, I learned something powerful. Survivors often blame themselves not because they're weak, but because blaming yourself creates an illusion of control. If it was my fault, then maybe I could prevent it next time. But the truth was simpler and harder. I wasn't responsible for his actions. I was responsible for my safety, and I had honored that responsibility. For a long time, I thought strength meant endurance, staying quiet, holding things together, not rocking the boat. But this experience redefined strength for me. Strength was saying no without apologizing, walking away without explaining, choosing peace over approval. I finally understood what I had been building all along. That inner fortress wasn't about walls. It was about clarity. Clarity about who gets access to me, what behavior I tolerate, where my responsibility ends. And when it was tested, it held. Strength was choosing myself, even when it cost me comfort. Healing didn't happen overnight. There were moments of anger, moments of sadness, moments of deep exhaustion. But there was also growth, a deeper trust in myself, a sharper awareness of boundaries, a quiet confidence that didn't need validation. This story isn't just about what he did. It's about what I did. It's about listening to that inner voice, even when it speaks softly. It's about practicing boundaries before you need them most. It's about understanding that no is a complete sentence. That if you're watching this and something inside you feels familiar, please hear this. You are not rude for protecting yourself. You are not dramatic for honoring your instincts. You are not responsible for someone else's disappointment. Boundaries are not walls meant to punish others. They are gates meant to protect you. That day changed me, not because of what was taken, but because of what was claimed. My voice, my autonomy, my right to safety. The fortress within me stood firm, and I walked away stronger, clearer, and fully in charge of my own sanctuary.